Hey everyone, my name's Chris Lambert. On this channel, we talk Kanye West. And Kanye has just tweeted out this article here. You can see Kanye speaks, West plan to rethink the music industry. And shockingly, it's not an interview with Forbes. It's Billboard, and it came at Billboard, or the request of Kanye to Billboard, which is interesting. And you can see he tweeted it out, I guess, 40 minutes ago, but you can see that they said West elaborated on his feelings about recording contracts as well as his efforts to reform the way music business structures them. At West's request, the interview was conducted by text through an intermediary, but West's identity was verified by video, which I just imagine somebody following Kanye around like on the phone while Kanye like says his answers. The person just has to like type the answers for him. But the interview is interesting because it kind of, I guess, on the one hand, it takes another step forward and solidifies more that this is definitely a path that Kanye is walking, right? He is going after the recording industry. He's going after music labels and wanting to restructure the way that this industry is set up, not only because he is not benefiting because he doesn't own his masters and feels like he's been getting the raw end of the deal, but also because he feels other artists have been having some difficulty. Like the whole system takes advantage of the artists. And if there's one thing we know about Kanye, he hates that kind of unfairness, and especially like systemic unfairness. So this interview is fascinating. I don't know if you've read all the tweets, if there's anything that really jumps out that's all that like earth shattering, right? You can see what inspired you to post your contracts. What has the response been like? The desired effect will only be achieved when every artist owns their masters. I'm team free artists. I'm committed to doing whatever is necessary so artists own their copyrights. The response is awesome because everyone knows this is a broken system that needs to be fixed. Currently, artists take advances to make records, and yet when they repay those advances, the record company still owns the records. Imagine a bank lending you money to buy a house, and then when you've repaid that mortgage, them telling you they still own it. I said bank, so weird. Them telling you they still own it. Yeah. Joel Cat showed up. Mercuriadis showed up. Steve Rifkin showed up. I put together a group of advisors to get me the information I need to succeed on the behalf of the artists. It seems like he hasn't really... He is in discussions with Universal, but he doesn't elaborate on what those discussions are. It looks like you're talking to Vivendi. What have those conversations been like? Can you elaborate on how the concept of the startup accelerator Y Combinator might apply to music contracts? So real fast, what's interesting about Joel Katz is he's a prominent music lawyer, Hypnosis Song Funds founder. Mercuriadis was one of the top like label people in the UK, and then started the most prominent or largest independent record label in the UK, and then just made this Hypnosis Songs Fund, which is this weird thing that actually puts equity into songs and has a stock market. Like it's a stock that's publicly traded, right? And they essentially purchase song catalogs or songs and then have investments in those songs, which they've actually turned money into, or music into, like stock into equity, which is kind of wild. And then Rifkin is just a prominent label owner, right? And somebody prominent in the music industry. And then the Y Combinator thing, Y Combinator was a startup accelerator that's responsible for like Reddit, Airbnb, Uber, like Twitch, like all these huge new wave like tech industry giants. Y Combinator was one of the accelerators for it. So Kanye had mentioned that in conversation with Vivendi, they had talked about like Y Combinator like ideas, which wasn't even with Vivendi. It was with Katie Stanton, I think that's the name, who's on the board of Vivendi. But he just says that he appeals to conglomerates because he has influence that goes beyond music. Are recording contracts by nature predatory? Is this enslavement as you suggested on Twitter? You only need to look back to the early days of the record companies and see how predatory they were. Old execs admit it, they do, especially like Motown. The contracts are almost the same now, the shape, the terminology, and yet in that time we moved to a completely digital age. Has the attitude of the labels and the structure in which our music moves on our side changed to that degree? No, it has not. You're locked in. Once you're locked in, you can ask no questions. Name me one contract which allocates the amount of time you get with the finance team. It's audit or nothing. Insane. I don't know enough about record contracts to know what the audit means or not, or why you'd need to meet with the finance team, but Kanye's concerned about it. I read the guidelines you shared on Twitter. Is this a privileged position to take? Which I saw some other people saying, like, oh, Kanye can have these like guidelines or this, but that's because he's made his money. Like, other artists benefit from big artists like Kanye succeeding. Labels wouldn't invest in them otherwise, yada, yada, yada. You can afford to buy back your masters now, but could you have built a career like this without such a deal? Does it your success essentially pay for the label to take risks on the artists who don't make it? What I outlined was in no way linked to me being successful and fortunate in my success. Asking for major labels to adapt their royalty portals is for everyone, especially those unable to afford a team. Yeah, Kanye had like 5 pillars that he was saying that labels needed to do, and one of them was a back-end portal that's accessible for everybody and where you can see all the numbers, all the money you've made, down to the song, the album, etc. Because right now you don't have access to that all the time. And in this day and age, you should, right? You sign to a major, you put your songs in a huge pot of titles they use to negotiate with. Their power now comes not only in selling, but investing our songs into apps and DSP platforms and so on, right? That's one of the things, like when Spotify was coming around, they had to ask all the major labels for the rights to play the music, right? And so Universal, as Kanye pointed out on Twitter, got like 22 million shares in Spotify because that was the cost to get Universal songs or Universal music onto the platform. But do the artists really benefit from any of that stock, right, that now Universal gets from their music? That's what Kanye is talking about there. Not just there, but in a bunch of other scenarios as well. Just being able to use the weight of the artist or the work of the artist to benefit the company without the artist really getting that much in return. We create their value in getting our songs to earn us sales, but also equity. Removing things like label-wide licenses is just me pointing out the old deals cannot just change by adding the word streaming in the sales section. The business changed. Our catalogs combined with other catalogs equals power. If we contribute to that power, we get paid, period. That's for all. Every single record involved in helping get an equity play over the line is a shareholder in the equity it gained. Small, large, makes no difference. Break the model. The artist is the equity. All caps is very Kanye. I'm glad they kept it. The music industry is very different from a decade ago or 5 decades ago. Are your proposals about the new opportunities for artists, or could they have applied through history? You have to adapt. You can't have old rules for new genres. No other business in the world would suggest you don't adapt to a completely new supply chain and income sources. And yet we are tied to a contract formula for vinyl. That was the point that really stood out to me the most. Is just like, yeah, all of this is an extension of the vinyl era. And yet we're in the streaming era, which is so completely and radically different. And yet that's still the structure of the contract that stands. We can be nostalgic and respectful of those times, but we must look at how we create in this new world and how we make money in this world. How do you think a young artist stays creative when he or she can't eat, or he or she feels completely frustrated or confused about the business? How does this help the artist? Do they care? No, they have other artists. Do they care? Is it about the artist at that point, but about like the labels? Because the labels have other artists. Artists have one career. Majors have millions. No disrespect, multi-millions. The thought has to flip to the individual. I understand you're working with Joel Katz. How are you connected with him, and what does working with one of the most powerful entertainment lawyers mean for your cases against UMG and Sony ATV? With Joel Katz is like actually one of the heads of the Grammys, right? Like the recording industry's head lawyer, which is kind of wild. Through a constituent, Amir Sadan. Here's the thing, whether it's Joel Katz, Merck, Steve, or others, I hire and work with people who are not afraid to remove everything they have been told is a status quo and move. It means I'm looking at this from the best perspective with those unafraid to do the same. So who's Amir? Executive Turntable. Concord names CFO of Recorded Music. BPI appoints new director of public affairs. Okay, record producer and manager Amir Sadan has formed a trio of companies, Silverback Management, Hit Nation, and Silverback Productions. It was announced Thursday. Sudan will serve as CEO. Okay, that doesn't really tell us anything. Sudan is rep by Joel Katz, founding chairman of the Global Media and Entertainment. Okay, that's the connection. You've made this a bigger issue than you about all artists. What happens if you get your right back? I will help set precedents. I will help develop better royalty portals and deal shapes. I will design how this flows with them. It won't just be an ecosystem of numbers. So kind of does it outright say that if I get my masters back, like I'm going to continue the fight. He just states like, I'm going to set precedents and I'm going to develop better royalty portals and deal shapes. So it seems like his impact is going to be not just in him getting his masters back, right, and setting that precedent, but also in how he's going to design the flow of contracts moving forward. You said on Twitter you'd help Taylor Swift get her masters back. Why do you want to help her? Have you talked to Scooter about this? And the context: in July 2019, in a deal reported to be worth upwards of $300 million, Scooter Braun's Ithaca Holdings bought Big Machine Label Group. What was I calling it? Like Broken Machine Label Group? Big Machine makes more sense. That was a couple of videos ago, including Taylor Swift's early albums, which the singer has unsuccessfully tried to buy back, and she was pissed about because she does not like Scooter Braun. All artists need to be free and own their rights. Taylor Swift deserves that just like everyone else. As I mentioned before, Scooter Braun is a friend. It will be having that discussion. So they have not had that discussion. Will you no longer work with UMG? Kanye said earlier in a tweet that he wanted nothing to do with UMG and Sony, but now he's kind of walking that back and saying that if they do that, I will partner with them and bring music to life. And then what's your strategy now? A nice closing paragraph from Kanye here. Free all artists by any means necessary, like taking up the Malcolm X by any means necessary line. I will work to rip apart the structure we are attached to that pays people for music. Nice verb choice, rip apart. We cannot have designed streaming, but not designed a new method for payment and ownership around it where we all benefits. Predominantly the equity, i.e. the artist. The balance of power is too off, the gap between major label profit and artist profit too wide, and I will work to rethink the design of the entire way we move in this space. Streaming reinvented the wheel, and we all stuck on the sidewalk wondering if we have cab fare. We have to get out of the matrix. It will happen. Remember, Ye told you so. This sounds so much like a Gil Scott-Heron line, right? Like you can hear this like in Who Will Survive in America or My Way Home. Streaming reinvented the wheel, and we all stuck on the sidewalk wondering if we have cab fare. A little Who Will Survive in America reference there. But it's an interesting interview. Again, I don't think necessarily groundbreaking, but Kanye doing interviews like this does continue to formalize what he's doing, because it's one thing to tweet it. It's another thing to have meetings, and then it's another thing to be getting the media to not only interview you, but get more of your concepts and ideas out there. And someone as like big as Billboard, which is like a huge part of the recording industry, like printing this, we'll see what's next in the, like what next move Kanye has when it comes to, I don't know, this happening, and where the conversations with Universal Music and Vivendi go from here. Has he tweeted anything? I never know. Okay. But that's it for this video. Ending spiel. If you're enjoying the channel and you want to support us, the easiest way is liking, subscribing, or commenting, as those three things tell YouTube that this is a channel people enjoy, so then they show it to more people. And then the other way to support us is we are best known for our line-by-line lyrical analysis of Kanye's discography. We have episodes that go up for free on Apple and Spotify, one a week, but we have newer episodes going up on Patreon. So currently on the public feed, we have College Dropout going, and on Patreon, we have 2 episodes a week about late registration. And once we finish that up, we're going to get into Graduation, 808s, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. So by the time you're able to listen to those on the public feed, it might be another 3 to 6 months. So if you want to get not only the latest episodes, but the whole catalog, patreon.com/Kanye podcast. And I guarantee you each episode will change the way you listen to that particular song, but also the album that the song's on. Like, you're going to come away with a much deeper understanding. We describe it as an MFA in Kanye. And you can get your MFA in Kanye for just $5 a month. Until next time, stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.